Imagine you are 11 years old on your way to school and you never arrive. No one knows where you are. No one hears you scream. The search for you lasts not days, not months, but years. And eventually, it stops. But what no one suspects is that you are still alive. And what happens to you over the next 18 years is beyond imagination. The Jaycee Lee Dugard case is one of the most harrowing kidnapping cases in U.S. history due to its duration and cruelty. In today's video, we tell her story. Jaycee Lee Dugard is 11 years old when she disappears without a trace on June 10, 1991, on her way to school in South Lake Tahoe, California. She lives there with her mother, stepfather, and little half-sister. The family recently moved from Los Angeles to the small town, hoping to find a peaceful, safe area for the children. Jaycee does not know her biological father, but she has a very close, almost friendly relationship with her mother. On the morning of June 10th, Jaycee leaves the house around 8 a.m. to go to the bus stop. She's wearing a pink jacket, white sneakers, and her long blonde hair is loose. Her stepfather is watching her from the property when suddenly a gray Ford pulls up next to her. A woman gets out, speaks to Jaycee, and tries to pull her into the car. Jaycee screams and fights back. Then the driver's door opens. A man gets out and incapacitates Jaycee with a stun gun. The two carry Jaycee into the car and drive away. Her father, who has been watching the whole thing, tries to follow the car on his bicycle. But he's not fast enough and soon loses sight of it. The kidnappers drive Jaycee to a remote house about 200 kilometers away near San Francisco. The two men, Philip Garrido and his wife Nancy, live there. Philip Garrido is a convicted sex offender. In 1972, he was charged with abusing a girl. However, the case never went to trial because the girl did not testify. In 1976, Garrido kidnaps a 25-year-old woman named Katie Hall, holds her captive in a warehouse, and abuses her for hours. A police officer who happens to be passing by finally becomes suspicious and discovers her. Philip is convicted but released again in 1988. A psychological evaluation considers him harmless. However, another warns that he still poses a danger. Philip meets Nancy in prison. She's actually visiting another inmate there, but falls in love with Philip and marries him. Their life is unremarkable until they kidnap Jaycee Lee Dugard together in 1991. Jaycee is locked up in a small, soundproof shed. There she is naked, tied up, and has only a bucket as a toilet. She's not allowed to leave this shed for 3 months. During the day, it gets unbearably hot in the shed, and at night, it is freezing cold. There is only one tiny barred window, which is usually covered with blankets. Sometimes she can see the moon. That and a song her mother always sang to her to help her fall asleep give her strength during this time. Philip Garrido abuses Jaycee regularly. After the assaults, he cries, apologizes, and brings her fast food. Jaycee does not understand what is happening to her. Eventually, she stops crying. Later, she says that the tears burned her face. She's no longer allowed to say her name or keep anything that reminds her of her former life. She's only allowed to secretly keep a small butterfly ring. Later, she's given Barbie dolls. She makes furniture for them out of empty Tetra Paks. Jaycee cannot be found by the police. Investigators are unable to locate the car and the kidnappers. After several years, the investigation is finally closed due to a lack of new leads. While most people assume that Jaycee is dead, she's actually living in captivity. She keeps a diary throughout this time. In 1992, she writes, They did something that no one else would do for me. They paid $200 just so I could have a kitten. The animal means everything to her. It comforts her in the worst moments. But one day, it is taken away from her as punishment. At the age of 14, Jaycee learns that she is pregnant. She herself did not notice because she lacked the knowledge to do so. Philip shows her instructional videos about childbirth and claims he knows how to deliver a baby. The birth is traumatic and very painful for Jaycee. Philip cuts the umbilical cord with his hand and names the little girl Angel. The severely traumatized Jaycee is happy. She later says, "I was no longer alone. I had someone who loved me and whom I could love." At 17, she has a second child. After that, Philip's assaults stop, presumably because she no longer has a childlike body. Over time, Jaycee gains more freedom. She helps out in Philip's print shop, teaches her two daughters to read and write with the help of TV shows like Sesame Street, and is occasionally allowed to attend concerts or visit a nail salon. Outwardly, she goes by the name Alyssa. No one knows her true identity. She lives with the children in a tent in the garden, which Philip built after the birth of her first daughter. It now has a wooden floor and a little more space, but is still hidden behind a thick hedge. Even though Jaycee is allowed to move around relatively freely in the garden and on the property, she remains a prisoner. She does not try to escape and never mentions her past to strangers. Customers at the print shop later remember a polite blonde woman who was introduced to them as Philip's daughter. Jaycee does not write openly about thoughts of escape in her diary either. In 2002, she writes that she does not want to hurt Philip because he gave her a kitten. 2 years later, she writes that she feels like she is losing control of her life, that she no longer knows whether her thoughts are really her own. Over the years, Jaycee has become a product of her environment. She shows no signs of resistance, but takes on tasks, looks after the children, and settles into the life she is forced to lead. When asked if she had feelings for Philip, she later said no. She did not feel the need to please him or identify with him. She also rejects the so-called Stockholm Syndrome. She explains that she did not love him, but simply did what was necessary to survive and protect her children. Outwardly, Philip presents a normal family. Nancy is considered the mother of the children, and Jaycee is presented as the older sister. Jaycee lives in constant fear that her two daughters could be taken away from her. This fear, coupled with psychological control, prevents her from seeking help or confiding in anyone. Over the years, Philip himself drifts further and further into religious delusion. In 2008, he founds his own religious community called God's Design. He sees himself as God's chosen one and begins preaching in the neighborhood. The family seems strange to outsiders, but no one seriously suspects anything. Meanwhile, Jaycee's family continues to suffer from uncertainty. Her stepfather in particular comes under repeated suspicion, as he was the last person to see her. He's questioned again and again, even though there is no evidence against him. The constant investigations, media interest, and feeling of personal failure take a heavy toll on him. He and Jaycee's mother separate, and they both suffer from depression. The hope of finding a sign of life from their daughter remains over the years, even though there are no new leads. Almost everyone outside their family assumes that after all these years, there is no hope for Jaycee and that she is long dead. On August 24, 2009, a police officer on a university campus in Berkeley notices Philip and two girls distributing religious leaflets. The children appear pale and unsettled. When questioned, they say that their sister's name is Alyssa and that Philip is their father. The officer becomes suspicious and begins to check Philip's past. When he finds out that Philip is a convicted sex offender on probation, an appointment is made with the family. 2 days later, Philippe, Nancy, Jaycee, and the girls show up at the police station. Jaycee continues to pretend to be Alyssa, but she seems tense. When an officer makes it clear to her that she can be honest, she whispers quietly that she is not allowed to say. When she is given a piece of paper and a pen, She writes Jaycee Lee Dugard on the paper. At this point, she is 29 years old and has spent 18 years in captivity. She has spent more of her life in captivity than in freedom. Her 2 daughters are already teenagers themselves. At this moment, the girls learn that Jaycee is not their sister, but their mother. The investigators react immediately. Philippe and Nancy are arrested. Charges are brought against them for kidnapping, child abuse, false imprisonment, and other crimes. In total, there are around 29 charges. Jaycee and her children undergo medical examinations and receive psychological care. All 3 are physically unharmed. The reunion with their mother takes place just a few hours later. When the police inform Pamela, she initially thinks it is a bad joke. Only when she's allowed to talk to Jaycee on the phone does she realize that her daughter is really still alive. It is the first conversation she has had with her in over 18 years. After Jaycee's rescue, serious failures on the part of the authorities come to light. The police had had direct or indirect contact with Philippe more than 60 times in recent years. In 1993, he violated his probation conditions and spent several months in prison. During this time, Nancy could have released Jaycee, but she did not. In 2006, a neighbor reported to the police that Philip was letting children live in tents in his garden. An officer drove to the house and spoke to Philip at the door. However, he did not look at the property or the garden. Jaycee herself was seen during several checks, but she pretended to be someone else. Philip had to wear an electronic ankle bracelet, but no one checked who was on the property. In 2011, Philippe and Nancy Garrido pleaded guilty as part of a plea bargain. Philippe is sentenced to 431 years in prison, Nancy to 36 years. Philippe later says in an interview that he was healed by a religious awakening. After her rescue, Jaycee largely withdraws from public life. She publishes 2 books about her story. The first is titled Stolen Life. The second book is called Freedom: My Life After Captivity. In it, she recounts the difficult journey back to a self-determined life. Today, she lives with her daughters in a secret location. The state of California has provided her with $20 million in compensation to ensure her safety, therapy, and privacy. She has established a foundation for victims of kidnapping and sexual violence, but keeps her distance from the media. Jaycee has managed to break her silence and regain control of her life. And that brings us to the end of today's video. It is extremely rare for a kidnapping victim to still be alive after 18 years. What do you think about today's case and the many missed opportunities by the investigators? Feel free to write your opinion in the comments, which will also support this channel. Remember to subscribe to the channel and activate the bell. If you want to see the videos 24 hours earlier, uncensored and without ads, please subscribe to me on Patreon. You can find the link in the info box, along with links to my Instagram channel and Discord. Thank you in advance. Otherwise, there's not much more to say. I wish you a good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on when you're watching the video, and hope to see you again in the next video. Until then, ciao everyone.